Consider This, with host Carol Schrader, is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hi, and welcome back to UNO and to Consider This. There are so many opportunities I've had in the past 4 years doing Consider This to have on people that I can consider my friends. And not only are they my friends, but they're extremely newsworthy and interesting. So I've had a pretty interesting life with interesting people. One of those is on today. His name is John Beasley, and you probably recognize his face if you're a TV fan or a movie fan. We could go on, but CSI, the big hit show on CBS this year, he was in 2 episodes. One of my favorite sci-fi kind of movie series, Millennium. I watch, there's John. He's in movies, The General's Daughter, Freedom Song. He's got movies in the works, movies in the can, and he's here today with us. You're not in the can today. You're in the Milo Bale Student Center.
We're live here at Milo Bale.
You have struggled isn't the right word, but worked at your craft for years and years, and people tend to peak in that business at a much younger age, and now your curve is just going up. How do you describe the parts? You're not the mainline parts, but how do you describe the parts you play as sort of, not to pigeonhole it or categorize
well,
it?
you know, they tend to call me in when they need someone that's believable and likable, for whatever reason that is. But I tend to get those types of roles, the types of roles that if this person was bumped off, you'd miss him, you know.
Well, that's a nice stuff, because you have died before
or
in a
someone
movie.
that you can, you know, and I think it started with, but not necessarily so, with the Apostle was one instance where Bobby Duvall needed someone that could be more like a mentor, and that could give him some guidance.
And that was a terrific movie. It was written and directed by Robert Duvall, and he looked for a long time for this part of a. It was, I guess it was already laid out that it was a black preacher man with great wisdom and clarity of thought.
Well, Bobby had done a lot of research on the film. He's not of that spiritual movement, but he found it very interesting when he was filming in the South. So he visited a lot of churches along the way, and he found that there were a lot of mixed congregations in the South.
Yes, there were.
Black preachers or white preachers and mixed congregations, and so that
the nature of the South has a lot to do with that long-time sort of Baptist, revivalist, evangelical kind of feel that the South has had for well, 200 years.
And I think just feel it's someone that he met along the way. And most of the characters that he developed there were based on someone he had met along the way. Some of them he actually bought and put into the film. We had a lot of real people, and so the challenge for the actors was to be real people. And I think that's one of the things that helped me land the role.
Well, he was a character that had sort of lost his way spiritually, and your character was woven in towards the second half of the movie, but you were, he knew that he was off base, and you were the one that was on base all the time.
He had sinned, but he still wanted to be an apostle of the Lord.
Yeah, it's a fascinating movie. If you have never seen it, folks, it is an entrancing film. But that was a real big kind of move for you, wasn't it?
It was a big breakthrough for me because it really opened me up to Hollywood. once that, everyone in the business, though it hadn't done that well in the box office, everyone in the business had seen the movie.
They liked the movie.
They liked
They realized
the movie,
it
yeah.
was a different movie.
It was a different
and
movie,
that
and
had
it
sort of-
was one of his best roles. He had portrayed a preacher like a preacher had never been portrayed before on film. Emma Gantry, none of them could, reach,
It was
what he was doing.
Gantry-esque. There was a feel of that in there.
It was a feel of that, but he was more real. I think he was just more of a man.
But he was as strong a
Yeah,
presence as
right,
Elmer Gantry.
right,
And that
right.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So people started to take notice.
Right, and
of
that's
this.
when I first got my first call from L.A. And I was called out to do an episode or a pilot called ATF. And the pilot, it never did make it into series. They did show the pilot, but that opened me up to L.A. And once I got out to L.A., my agent had me meeting people out there, and so I met Mindy Merritt at Blue Ranch Casting, and she became a big fan, and she introduced me to Antonio Banderas and
Oh.
Mace Newfield, who
Lucky you.
produced the General's Daughter, and also The Sum of All Fears, based on Tom Clancy's best-selling novel, which we just completed in Montreal with Morgan Freeman, Ben Affleck, James Cromwell, Philip Baker Hall, very
That's some
strong.
heavy hitters.
It was. And then Mindy had cast me to do I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. But I had a chance to work with the director. The director wanted me to do it, but it conflicted with Crazy in Alabama, which Antonio Banderas was directing, and I thought it was a much better role. It didn't turn out to be as large a film, but for me it was a much better piece of work.
Yeah, it wasn't critically acclaimed. It ran into some problems.
And there were problems, basically. Sony didn't really care for it. They did the script because it was Melanie Griffith's project, and they wanted Antonio to do some more Zorros. So
Right, so it's
they
like
gave
he
it to
came
him.
with the
Yeah.
deal. I
Yeah,
mean-
it came with the deal, and they didn't particularly care about the civil rights aspect of it because they felt civil rights doesn't sell, and you can't, and they had to treat it with kid gloves. So they didn't know how to market the movie. Basically that
And
was,
distribution and marketing is
yeah,
is a
they
big
didn't know how to
part.
market it, so it they gave it a little backdoor entrance and exit, but it's been doing well on cable.
You go back in my movie memory with things like Rudy as Coach Warren and the Mighty Ducks, one of the parents
Yeah.
that was a little disgusted with
Yes,
Amelia
Mr.
and
Hall.
his attitude.
Yeah.
And I having known you for, well, more than 2 decades, we won't get into how
Oh,
long.
that's a story how we got together. But
Well,
we'll talk
back
about
in our
that some-
radio
yeah,
days,
yeah, that's a
you were
story.
kind of filling in on
You
trying to
know,
find work to support your
I
acting habit.
I just come back from Philadelphia. I'd lived there for 5 years, and I thought, okay, what do I want to do? So I started radio. I talked my way into the radio station, KWH at the time, and I
And it was
wanted to
KLNG.
I wanted to be a disc jockey, and so the manager said, well, we don't need any disc jockeys. Have you ever done news? I said, well, yeah, sure. It's the same thing.
Isn't acting. You don't
Yeah,
admit that
you
you've never
don't.
done anything.
I'm from Omaha.
You can
Yeah,
ride
sure.
a horse and you can do news.
I can do news. He says, well, when can you start? And then, I started sweating, but I thought, give me 2 weeks and I can learn the board. I've never operated the board before. So I said, give me 2 weeks. Every board's different. Let me get familiar. So the guy said, okay. So the next day I get a call. He says, we fired the news director. Can you start tomorrow? So I went on air, started from scratch, and I lost 10 pounds about that first week, just sweating, trying to run the promos and the news, what we do.
yeah, it's a
in
little bit
news.
of a
Yeah.
rhythm that
Yeah,
has to
yeah.
be developed.
But I developed it over those 2 weeks, and then I left there and wound up at KLNG, where you were there, and you were gracious enough to give me some of your time so I could make a little bit of money occasionally, because you wanted off. And
well, it worked out
that's
well,
how
but
it
you were
worked out.
still, you still had
I was
the
still
acting
acting
bug.
then. Yeah, I was acting
and,
then. I was doing stuff at UNO here, some really good stuff. at
Right, and I
UNO.
know Lyle DeMoss, which many Omaha people, Lyle,
Yes,
he was he did cooking shows for years in Omaha, and he did talk shows, but he was a character, and Lyle had so much faith in you.
He did.
He knew, this man
He did.
kept telling everyone, you just wait. You
Oh my goodness.
just
You know,
wait. That
that's
John
incredible
Beasley.
that you would tell me that, because he called me one night. I was on the air, and he just told me that he really enjoyed my voice and what I was doing. I never knew. Had I known that he had that much faith in me, I would have stayed there at KLNG long enough to make his words come true.
Well, he always did before
Yeah, he
passing.
was a
He had
great
mentioned you
guy.
often before you had even made a movie. He said he said
That's
late bloomer.
incredible.
He's a late
Yeah.
bloomer.
And how true it was.
But you are still blooming. I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, CSI, which is the big CBS, one of the big CBS hit shows
Yeah.
this year, starring another Nebraskan,
Mark.
Halkenberger,
Yeah.
and who is really coming into her own as a mature actress.
Yes.
And what you guys are telling us that in this youth-driven market, even though there's some cute little young stars in that show, there are mature people with mature special guests that are adding really to the fabric of these shows, as opposed to just making a flash in the pan.
And those were her words, not exactly, but she said something similar to that to me when I came on the show after we had finished working together. But I worked with Roscoe Lee Brown, great stage and film actor, in Chicago one year, and he at the Goodman Theater. And Roscoe was coming, they were coming off Broadway with Jitney, which Lawrence Fishburne won Best Actor on Broadway in that.
Tony Award,
and
yeah.
so he left to do What's Love Got to Do with It, the Tina Turner story. They brought in Eric LaSalle to take that place. That was before ER. So Roscoe we had a first rehearsal, and then Roscoe started asking around about me, and then he came to me and he said, I heard you started when you were 45. He said, well, I started when I was 35. And, he says, you've got plenty of time and you're going to do very well. And that meant a lot, because that was a concern. I was raising a family here and waiting for my time to just go and do my thing, because this business can wear on a family. I mean, it can break families up.
Well, not being able to, any family, not being able to count on an income, having someone zipping around,
exactly.
and hoping for every opportunity. Your wife, I've always told you, you owe her a great debt for
there's no question.
being here, working
no
the job at
question.
the Med Center,
Yeah.
and keeping the family. You got 2 grown kids,
Yeah.
and I mean, I know you know that. I
Yeah.
just like to
Yeah.
tease you.
Yeah, well, when the time came, and early on she was not supportive of it. She didn't want any parts of it. But when the time came, she said okay. She gave her approval, and then she paid the bills and took care of things and helped me commute back and forth to Minneapolis and Chicago, because I couldn't afford to stay there, because we only had the one income, and I didn't feel that she should have to go below the level that we had established for ourselves, because of my dream. But she
when it
stuck with
came time to look, the fact that you might have things cooking, not the big movie and stuff, but the acting, some good acting parts, then she stepped up to the plate.
She did, and then she was working at U.S. West at that time, and after 19 years they let her go with the downsizing that was going on at that time. But I was fortunate enough to have landed Brewster Place by that time, and that was after my first year in the business. And
That was your first
yeah,
TV
that was my first
series.
national exposure, and so then when she left that, I was able to allow her to go to school and pick up something that she wanted to do.
Now help me out. Brewster Place, that was Oprah Winfrey?
That was Oprah
And you
Winfrey.
were the postman.
I was a postman, her love interest, as it turned out to be.
It was real subtle
He was, yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah, it was. He was written as just a friend of hers, and the idea came from Stedman Graham. He said, the show needs this character,
Little spark, a
So they
Ruby.
brought me on as a recurring character. As it turned out, I wound up doing more episodes than the regulars. But when I first met Oprah, it was a very interesting meeting. And we were waiting to do a screen test, and I asked her between, while they were setting the lights and everything, I said, Oprah, where did you where did you study acting? And she said, I didn't. And I said, well, don't mess up, because this is my big chance. And so that kind of,
I broke the ice, if anything.
But it's always, I'm always like, I'm just this guy from Omaha. I don't know any better, we're just I'm just a
so they
country
cut you
boy
some
from Omaha.
slack
They cut
right
you
off the
slack,
top, so you can get away with that kind of.
Yeah, their ignorance about Omaha, is to my benefit.
And they are. They are.
They are.
You were
Yeah.
you alluded to this earlier about riding the horse. That somebody
yeah.
called you and
Sure.
wanted to know. Well,
Can you ride a horse?
Because
I'm from Omaha.
a movie coming out is a western.
Yes.
Actually, pretty bizarre sounding western. Isn't
Barry
it?
Corbin's in there
Yeah.
from Northern Exposure.
Right.
Remember? Yeah, Barry's quite a character from Lubbock, Texas. Yeah, quite a character.
But and that has yet to come out. But they said, "Can you ride a horse?" And you didn't say yes or no. You said.
I'm from Omaha. Yeah, everybody rides horses in Omaha.
And they bought it because they
Okay.
just thought we did that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, say we regularly downtown
Yes.
have
Well, they think we have
rope
cows
cows
walking
and
on the
stuff. Yeah.
streets and things like that.
Well, I guess those stereotypes.
and no
sometimes
black
works, too.
people. We don't have any black people in Omaha.
No.
I usually say we got maybe 14, and now there's 13 back because I'm out here, So they seem to buy that.
You are black.
Last time
When did
looked,
I notice? And you are light-skinned black.
except in the summertime, I play a lot of golf.
Yeah, you play a lot of golf. Not that really has anything to do with it, but you are not a very dark-skinned
right.
black. I think of Morgan Freeman is darker, Larry Fishburne, some.
Sure.
But that's irrelevant, except for the fact that you don't seem black to me. I know you're black. I've known you for many years, but I mean, you don't come across advertising. I'm a black character.
From
You're
the very,
just- do you know
very
what I mean?
beginning, very
People
beginning,
know it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you know
the
what I'm
very
saying?
beginning, I tried to portray a man.
And I think
And
that's
that's
what you do.
first and foremost. And I started here at UNO. We were doing Streetcar Named Desire, and I was the only black in the cast. I played what's his name? Was it Mitch?
The husband?
The boyfriend. The card player.
Okay.
Streetcar Named Desire. The one that Carl Malden played. My mind is going.
But that-
anyhow, one of the comments was that from one of the critics was that John Beasley's a fine actor. Who's, the show was great. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't get past the fact that this was a black man in this show. As the love interest to Blanche. But the response to in the paper, the scoop paper was, what's wrong with you? Once you get past that initial thing, it's like this guy was a man, first and foremost. He was a man like any man, and that's been my thing. I'm born black, and there's no way I can change that.
No, and I didn't.
want to.
I didn't
and I know
mean
you
that,
didn't mean
but
it
what,
that way.
What the roles
but
that
yeah,
you have
I tried to portray
are
a fair
not,
man.
other than the Apostle, which was a black character, because it was a Southern black
Sure.
character, although it could have been a white character, but it was
Sure.
played as a black character. The parent in Mighty Ducks, the coach in Rudy, they're just part of the plot, and it's not like.
Well, I think a good actor should be able to transcend that stuff.
Yeah.
And I consider myself Morgan Freeman. You look at Morgan, the roles that he portrays, the things that he.
But when we
he
first
does.
saw Morgan, because he is a little darker,
Driving Miss
he was
Daisy,
very,
yeah.
and he was in a very black. When he really made it big, was Driving Miss Daisy, and it was a very black role. That was part of the angst
Sure.
of the movie was
Sure.
that he was a black man, and she was kind of a fading lily
Yes.
of the South. But it's not an issue when you're casting now. I mean, because you have made your bed as an actor, as opposed to, well, we need to fill this black role. Although on CSI, you played a black character because your son in the one thing was black. I mean, it just happened to be, but it doesn't seem to be an issue with the casting people per se. Unless it fits a particular.
It may be. I think there's still things that I won't be called for because I'm black, but but I'm hired now because of what I can bring to the project as a person. You know, and it's the sensibility, the sensitiveness, and that sort of thing.
And you do grab people. In fact, I after you told me that about the CSI episode, which was the third episode of this show. I mean, it's a new show. It was the third episode. You told me that they are recommending me for an Emmy nomination.
Yeah, they put me in for Emmy consideration.
And you said because the producers or the director or somebody said because you made people cry.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I got a
I have
chance to
that
see it on the
ability, yeah.
rerun, and you sure did.
And you know what? When they first aired that, they ran it 2 weeks later. They ran that episode again
'Cause it was a new
because
show,
of
they were
that.
trying to
Yeah,
pick
and they were
people
trying
up,
to pick
too.
people up. And they're in reruns now. And someone just told me they ran those episodes
Oh
back
yeah,
to
I saw
back.
it. I saw him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
and it
didn't
was
know
great
that.
because
Isn't
I was
that
able to like
incredible?
catch up in
Yeah.
2 weeks. And it's a good show. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed watching it. And is there a chance you may be back?
I think so. They like me out there. In fact, the way I've landed the last one, they were, it was the second to the last episode, and they were trying to look for something that would continue, you know, to bring the ratings up. And I mean, because it's really a very highly rated show now, and they were looking for someone to. That Gary could feed off, Gary Durbin, who plays
The,
one
ma-
of
the,
yeah,
the,
right.
the male lead.
And so they said, let's bring Beasley back, you know. So, in fact,
Beasley's
you know,
back.
In fact, they had initially, they had. I read for the pilot. I sure did, and then I forgot about it because I didn't get the role.
And there's a lot of that in the acting biz. I mean, I suppose when you reach the part where they call John Travolta, this is a John Travolta movie, but there are really
Yeah.
so few actors. It seems like there's a lot of them, but in the world of acting, there's so few actors that don't have to read.
You know, that's true.
Because there's
you
so
know,
many parts below
yeah.
the top 3 or 4 in the movie.
You know, but what they do in the business, they start typecasting. They typecast a lot, and when they get a script and they say, "Well, they'll see you in that role. They'll see it." And a lot of times, I don't have to read anymore, especially if it's somebody that I've worked for. But I don't have to read because I have a strong body of work out there, and I have a pretty good reel. But when I do. When they do somebody new wants to see me, they allow me to put myself on tape here, and I send it out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, in fact, that's how I landed The Apostle. In fact, a lot of my roles I've shot right in my living room, or with Randy Nogg. I don't know if you know Randy Nogg. Manya Nogg was my first agent ever.
Right.
And so her son, Randy, sometimes we collaborate on different projects, and he'll tape and play the other character. And
Yeah, they work.
we'll
They're
play
out of
down.
Omaha, although he's worked in L.A.
Yeah, he has.
Some bit.
Very good writer, too.
You are back in Nebraska, as you are when you're between gigs. A couple of things going on.
Oh, yeah.
You are going to reopen Fences.
Right.
A play that you did earlier this spring and had to cut short because you're going back to CSI.
Right.
But you're the lead in it. You're also the director, and you're also acting in the theater now named
Yes.
after you.
You know what? To me, it's still center stage, and I.
It'll always be to me, I guess.
And I refer to it as the John Beasley Workshop at center stage, and I prefer that. I don't need a building named after me, and
But it's kind of neat, though, because we don't have actors that are established as you are, just crawling out of the walls here. We have some people who have come from Omaha in this area who have been successful, but it's really neat because you lived here a lot of your life. You didn't take off after college, and nobody saw you again. So you really are, you are in Omaha and still are, and so it's kind of neat to have. I wouldn't call it an honor, but to have to recognize that you are an Omahan, continue to be an Omahan. And this, by the way, is in case you're not familiar, the old Center Stage Theater down in the LaFern Williams Center.
Right,
Down
30th and
30th and Q. And at its height was a real active little theater, and
It
then
was.
kind of slowed down and
Yeah.
closed even for a while, if I remember.
I did a couple of shows there. Death of a Salesman, Streetcar Named Desire, Great White Hope. Some really good work we used to do there. And so when OHA offered the space to me, and I'm still trying to set up the theater so that we can have a regular season, but right now I'm kind of doing it as I can. And out of the workshop, we've also created, because I'm into fitness, I have a golf league, a John Beasley Theater golf
Oh,
league
how fun.
that we play at Miller Park. It's open to the public, and the people in the league I hope to use as support for the theater. And I also teach tennis for OHA kids and others that are interested in it.
See, you are
So-
you are still part of
Yeah,
us, and we are
yeah.
part of you. And they are going to reopen Fences right after they honor you at the Great Plains
Exactly.
Film Festival
That's
in
right,
Lincoln.
yeah.
They're going to spotlight The Apostle because it critically, I think, maybe the public didn't go crazy, but critically, it's a really
Yeah, this is their
Good
second
film.
time bringing me in for The Apostle. It's one of their favorites.
they're
now.
honoring you
Yeah.
specifically
This
this
time,
year.
yes. And
it's not a bad little film festival.
oh, it's pretty nice.
It is.
Yeah, it's pretty
If
nice.
people have never taken the time to go
Yeah.
down to Lincoln, and it lasts about a month.
Yeah, we were scheduled to open Fences on the 27th of July, and because they're going to honor me with this on the 27th, we're going to open the 28th, and we're going to be at the Fern Williams Center. It's a wonderful play, a very powerful piece by August Wilson. One of my favorites, in fact, it was my first play as a professional. I got my equity card in Fences.
Well, and it is a powerful play about relationships and families.
Relationships and families.
And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I was going to see it and had
I
tickets,
know,
and then
I
you
know.
and you took off. But there are a lot of people that now get the chance to see it that may not have before. Before we sort of wrap up this show, where are we going to be seeing you? In a theater near us.
The Sum of All Fears is in post-production now, and it's a very powerful piece. Jack Ryan is played by Ben Affleck this time, and I think it's going to be a great film. $150 million budget. They could have hired anybody they wanted to.
And they hired
me,
you.
so-
Isn't that great? And coming out on tape pretty soon should be The Gift.
The
with Kate
Gift
Blanchett,
should be
Hilary
out, yeah.
Swank. Kind of a Billy Bob Thornton
Billy
was a
Bob
co-writer.
Thornton,
Boy,
yeah.
he must have been an interesting
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
To
yes,
deal with.
Yes, yes.
Mr.
Yeah,
Slingblade.
Yeah.
But
Mr. Slingblade.
you're having such an exciting life. Come back in a couple of years and bring us up to
Well,
date, because
don't
I
wait-
know
let's not wait so long.
a lot is going to happen to you. Good luck. Hope to see you down in Lincoln for the film festival, and we'll
Okay.
definitely catch Fences. If you want to more information on Fences, you can call us here at KYNE, and I'll make sure. It's a little hard to kind of to get with the theater, but I'll make sure that you can touch bases with that information. John, thanks so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Come back. Let's keep in touch. And what an accessible guy. That's because he's from Omaha. And he still claims us. Thanks so much, John. And thank you for joining us this week on Consider This. And remember, you can catch us on the web. Go to the main UNO website, really easy to find, uno.edu. And go down the menu, UNO Television. You'll find all about UNO's TV station and Consider This. See you next week.
Consider This, with host Carol Schrader, is supported in part by Better Business Equipment and by Nebraskans for Public Television.